On this week's episode, I'm joined by Jan's Anton-Iago. Jans is born in the Philippines, raised in the UK, and has been living happily in Portugal for the last 5 years. Jans is a film critic, a film creator, and responsible for the incredible YouTube channel In the Mood for Life. We discuss, amongst other things, why Jans is so happy here in Portugal, exploring Portugal off the beaten track, and why his videos get people in the mood for Portugal. Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal the Simple Life, and I'm really happy to be joined here by Jans and Anton-Iago. Iago?
Yeah, you said that right.
Jans,
yeah,
sorry for the butchering of your name, but I'll get it right. Thanks for being on the podcast. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to be in your show. Truly, is a pleasure. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We kind of knew who each other. We kind of knew who each other was. We kind of knew who we were before we knew who we were. So I didn't realize that you were the guy who did the video content for Liz, for Talk the Streets. I found your channel before I realized you were the guy that did Liz's amazing videos. So it's a small world to this, how things work out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things of living here in Lisbon, really, is it feels like, it's a big enough city, but it still feels like a village. People know each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, I knew you because Liz introduced you to me, and it turns out that we're more connected than we think. So it's great.
Yeah. What's that degrees of separation? Not many. Not many.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not many. Absolutely.
Jans, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about you?
Sure. So, as you know, my name is Jans, and I am primarily a videographer and an animator. I'm based here now in Portugal. I moved here in the city in Lisbon 5 years ago. Time flew by so quickly, I didn't even realize it was already 5 years. So that's a little bit scary for me, and also exciting, because it feels like it means that it's truly marked in me that Lisbon, it means really special to me. I haven't moved anywhere else, so this means it's really great to be here. And background-wise, I'm originally from Philippines. That's where I was born. And then when people ask me where I'm from, I usually say born in Philippines and I grew up in London. That's because I spent half of my life really in London. So that's where I studied and worked and started my career. And then after that, there was a huge realization that I was sort of over London. That was like a chapter already that was ready to close and start to move on. And I was looking for a place, a much sunnier place to move to. Yeah, that was like the top of the list, basically, somewhere warmer and sunnier. And Lisbon was there, and I moved here. I even moved here sight unseen. I haven't been in the city.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Had you been to Portugal or before your move?
No, not at all.
Amazing.
I had friends who've been in Lisbon many times. I've heard lots of stories, and all the raves about the Portuguese weather, the Portuguese food, wine, everything. And I just followed my friend's advice and my heart and just went here in Lisbon, sight unseen, and I moved here immediately. And that was some of my friends say it was a bold decision that probably they wouldn't do, but it was a bit of an insane move, but it was. Yeah. So, but for me, the way I was able to handle it was, I put in my mind that, I could give the city 3 months. I would try it for 3 months, and if it works, then I'll carry on, and if not, I can find other cities. And here we are, 5 years later, still here, haven't moved an inch outside Portugal, still in Portugal, passionately in love with Portugal. I think it's a beautiful place.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how
I
it
had a
is.
similar thing. I thought I'll give Portugal a year.
All right.
And
Yours was longer.
yes, I was, I was willing to give her more time,
Mhm, mhm.
So I thought I'd give it a year, and see how it goes. And yeah, now it's been almost 14. So similar thing.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things though, where it's like it's as if like it's it sounds very it sounds very philosophical whatsoever. Like, there's the universe sort of started aligning, that sort of thing. Is like everything just worked out by itself. As it suddenly I had a NIF, suddenly I had an apartment contract, suddenly I had banking, suddenly it was just all working out. I'm just like, well, it's the sun shining on me in Portugal, so it's I started building my life here, and
Brilliant.
and thankfully as well, because I was fully employed in London. I was already very ready to work remotely. This was way before, everything else, all the digital nomad stuff. I've already been sort of really wanting to go to working remotely, and then I turned my last employer in London into a client. So in a way, I was very, very lucky to be able to move to Portugal with a client on hand. So I was able to work remotely immediately, and start building my life here, which is really great. So
Brilliant. What did you know about Portugal before coming? I mean, what were your expectations? Because I mean, like you said, you took this kind of blind, but you had some idea of what you were coming to.
yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
what were some of your expectations, and what did you kind of know about Portugal before making that move?
Well, I have watched, to be honest, admittedly, I'd watched a few documentaries before moving here, just to have, the vision concept in my head of what sort of country I'm moving into. And the more I watch, or learn more about Portugal, it's like the more it reminds me of my own culture. My Philippine culture from my
Okay.
childhood was a really warm culture, a culture that enjoys the outdoors, the feast, the festas, the drinking outside, the parties, and full of warm people, and all about almost everything is almost all celebrations are surrounding food and drinks, and that's, to me, Portuguese culture is as well here. And yeah, and it's the more I read about it, the more I know that it's a sunnier country, and it has a incredible landscapes, and the culture that is inviting and welcoming, and also a city that is very historical. It was very important to me. I didn't want to move into a city that um what's the word, um a new city. To me, for example, there are cities that just when I go in, it feels too new for me. And I love the weight of history in a place. And so Lisbon really ticked all the boxes. Portugal in general, sorry. Yeah, it
Mm.
ticked almost all the boxes that I was looking for a place to move into. Um, and and thankfully, it was just, I came here, and it felt really warm and happy and secure, and that's, I think we're going to talk about this later on, that idea of simplicity, which is the main concept of your podcast, really. So yeah, the simplicity. So
Interesting.
yeah, that's why I gave it a try. And I'm here, really, really in a good
So
place.
it was a good decision.
Yes, yeah, it was exactly. It could have been other places, I did consider other places, but most of them were wonderful cities. But having lived in London for so long, I've just had enough with all the cold and the grey. So it was like that. I've got to move to a polar opposite, a sunnier city, colorful city. And that's another thing I realized when I first landed in Portugal, in Lisbon, was like it felt like seeing colors for the first time. And that's not even exaggeration. It's
Yeah.
like coming down here on a plane. I was like, wow, this is so bright. The sky is so blue. The houses are colorful. There's pink, there's yellow, there's everything. It's just the pavement, everything was glowing. And that was really beautiful for me, like a really nice epiphany that I have been living in a very gray city for a long time, which is London.
Yeah, it's
So
almost like you're colorblind.
exactly. So it's almost rendered me colorblind.
Yeah, it's
So
great.
yeah,
I was there not long ago, and I forgot. I hadn't been since back. I hadn't been to London since I think 2018, and
yeah,
I'd forgotten how grey it was, and
yeah.
a bit gritty, and yeah. But I mean, at least it's historic. At least it's historic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a great, I loved London when I was there and studying and working. It was just a great place to study and work. And you have all the culture, all the buzz around you. And if you thrive in that
Yeah,
hustle and bustle, it's
yeah.
a city to be. But then you grow up and you realize, I kind of wanted the peace,
Yeah, well,
the
that was going to be
quieter
my
life.
question because it almost feels like everyone that I speak to, friends, family, clients who are in London, it almost seems like there's a expiry date on it for almost everybody.
Right,
Like it gets to a point
right.
where, okay, it's enough. And so either they leave completely or they move further and further out of the city, to the suburbs.
Yeah.
Um, and then you come to Lisbon, and Lisbon kind of doesn't, it's a city, but it doesn't feel like a city. I mean, how you mentioned it
Yes.
being a
Yeah.
village in more ways than one, really. I mean,
Yeah.
speak about that experience for you, that contrast of the two cities.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had these memories in London where I go to work, and it's like the very first moment I step into the underground, I'm already stressed. The stress is there. You feel it, or it's in the air around you. And then the end of the day, I go home, get the metro again. It's like it takes me like about, well, when I used to live sort of slightly zone six outside London. So it's like it takes you an hour just to get home, an hour even more. And you're just I was just exhausted and tired. And it's like it felt like entire day is just about the pressure and the exhaustion and trying to perform. And it's a very um highly pressured city, I think. It doesn't stop either. Like it just doesn't stop. The motion there was so fast and so quick. Life there is fast and quick. And then but here, it's like I even wake up later. It's like it's such a privilege to wake up later and not have to travel anywhere because obviously we work remotely and mostly work from home. But also to have the privilege to, after work, take a stroll, simple things like strolling outside or going for a drink or just roaming around in the sun. Or even sometimes I remind myself how incredibly crazy it is that the beach is just 15 minutes away, 15 or 20 minutes away. Sometimes I jump on an Uber and then go to the beach in Caparica, and it's like 20 minutes in an Uber, which is remarkable compared to my life back in London, where the beach is like, I don't know, hours to get to a sandy coast of England.
And
So
the actual
a
sand.
sandy one, actual sand, yes, not
Yeah.
rocky Brighton, no. So this is the perks about being in Lisbon. It's still a city, but like for example, I still find so much delight in just going to a farmer and still walking around. I still get lost in a farmer sometimes, like still walking around there, and I'm like, I put away my GPS and just walk. Sometimes I turn around the corner, I'm like, okay, I feel I haven't seen this before, or I feel lost, but that in a good way, you know. So that itself, it's has that village feel. That and in terms of socializing as well, it's like you meet someone, and most likely you're a few degrees removed from being friends with someone else. So that's really that's the one of the beautiful things about Lisbon. It's so
Mm.
well connected and so walkable. You can walk anywhere. People have been complaining about the hills here. I love the hills. It's just a great exercise for me. So like you climb out, I don't really
Yeah.
mind. It's the
You've got to work
walking.
for your dinner. You've got to work for your dinner.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's part of being healthy. So yeah, why not take it on?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have those
So
views and those miradores without the hills.
exactly. Yeah,
So it's special.
absolutely. So it's
What's
all worth it.
your favorite locale point in the city? That's a tough question.
Oh yeah, but I love the classic one, the Miradoro Signora, Nossa Senhora de Monte. Yeah, that one, that beautiful locale. I also really love Miradoro de Graça.
Grass is beautiful.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's really beautiful, and I love the fact that there's a church there at the back. just there. It's a really romantic place. And even that park there, the little square with the fountain, I think that's one of my most memorable Miraduros here.
Yeah.
And now because I moved across the city and now live in Príncipe Real, Hato area. So it's a very short walk from me, the São Pedro de Alcântara, which is
Yeah.
also really beautiful. And now they have this fountain with the water working again. It's even more beautiful. It's really, really pretty.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
I mean, it's
sometimes I
like,
walk past there.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's so many lookout points. It's amazing, that city, for little
absolutely.
spots. It's beautiful. Yeah, one of my Grasse is one of my favorites, and it's got a little bit busier now than what it used to be. But when I first saw Grasse, there was like maybe 5 people up there, a little caravan that you could have a
Exactly. I bet.
drink.
It must have been so different when you moved in here like a
Yeah,
decade ago.
yeah, it was. Um, the way that we found each other, Jans, was on because of your YouTube videos, in
Right.
the mood for. Those videos are amazing. So congratulations! I've watched all of
Thank
them.
you. Thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you.
But just tell us a little bit about some of the work that you're doing here in terms of your videography, and maybe a little bit about In the Mood as well.
All right. Yeah, sure. So yeah, that whole project started as a passion project, really. Also part of the realization that I used to write about film back in London. I was a bit of a film critic there, and then I realized that what I really love doing is to be behind the camera, to actually create videos. And the quickest way to do it is to just pick up a camera and start creating and start a YouTube channel. That means no big production and all that. It's all gung ho, very guerrilla filmmaking. And I said to myself, I'm going to use all the things that I know, the things that I've learned from my training as studying film and creative writing and documentary in London and media as well. And I thought I'll adapt those and apply them to what I know. And then I started doing that YouTube channel, and out of the fact that I was really passionate about Lisbon and Portugal, and I just sort of create videos that basically apply storytelling primarily. So using a specific approach that tells storytelling as well as basically approaching it in a cinematographer point of view, creating beautiful visuals and using a lot of slow motion, which is the style that I love using. Yeah, basically, I've been told that there's a lot of romanticizing about my videos. It's basically painting Portugal in a very beautiful way, and I that's okay. That's my style. I love doing it, and I'm still it captures what I basically saw Portugal in the beginning, where I had rose tinted glasses, but then 5 years later, even this time, I still see it as a really beautiful country, and it's such an honor to be able to be here and capture and make those videos. And I've been creating those videos for a while, been about 2 years now, and I've sort of made it my own mission to actually explore more and create more and see more out of Portugal. Even despite it's a very small country, there's still so much. I feel like there's still so many things I haven't seen. So yeah, and I work with clients because of those videos. I've gained some lifestyle clients from here as well as internationally. I work with clients from London that I had, and now recently I worked with some brands here in Portugal. The last one was the Pestana Hotel Group, which I work with them with. We worked together to create a series of videos for their branch called Pousadas de Portugal. So that was, to me, that was very rewarding and exciting. So
yeah, actually, just quickly about that, because I'm staying in a couple of them over the summer. But just
right.
for people that don't, Stramash.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then,
cool.
Abydos one is right near my house, and we stayed there for my birthday. The pousada is amazing. But for people that don't know, what is a pousada? What is it?
Yeah, that's right. It's basically historic hotels. So buildings that have been restored with their original structure, but created and modernized in a way to offer the facility of a hotel, basically. A lot of them, are really well preserved structures, and one of them, for example, is in, like, I didn't even realize, for example, in Faro, in Algarve, there's a beautiful palace there, Stoy Palace,
Yeah.
and I didn't even realize that. I only discovered that through this project, and like I was there looking and going, wow, this is really beautiful, and to have that privilege and the freedom now to actually stay in it, in a palace like that, restored palace. I think it's really beautiful. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So and there's so many places like that, just like so well kept secrets and hidden gems around the country that we don't even, it's not even, well known to the public. For example, um, I just stumbled across Busako
Yeah.
Palace in above Cambridge, which is so beautiful, and it's and not many people know it, which is very fascinating. And it's like one of the most marvelous buildings I've seen in Portugal so far.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, let me say to the person that told you you're romanticizing anything, it's nonsense. They can come talk to me. Okay. I'm happy to take the
All
heat.
right.
I think
All
you
right.
captured the country, and I think you've done, I can see why Pastana approached you, because the way that you catch some of those historical parts of the villages and towns, I think is absolutely breathtaking. The slow motion stuff that you do really captures the pace of these places, because the pace sometimes feels like that. I remember watching the one
Yeah.
that you've done for Villanova de Mil Fontes. I'm going there now
Right.
this summer with
Yes.
my family.
Fantastic. Beautiful place.
And actually, after booking and everything, then I saw your video and I'm like, yes, we've made a great decision, because I haven't been there before. But yeah, so it's just beautiful. So don't you love this thing of being able to live in like stay in an old castle or in an old palace? I think it's something so phenomenal, and feel very lucky to be able
Absolutely.
to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not something we do normally every day. So,
Yeah,
but apart from that, it's like it's just living in history, and that's one of the most beautiful things about Portugal is um is to be able to live in a country with such. It's one of the most, I don't know, one of the most fascinating histories in the world. This country
yeah,
has, I think. That's also one of the things I actually, when I first moved here, I devoured about 2, 3 books about Portuguese history. Just like it's so fascinating, and then you go all the way back basically, and that helped me understood what and still keep understanding the country and its history, that it's so deeply rooted to to the place. And and also that's one of the things I wanted to embed in my videos, is the respect for history, the respect for the stories, the respect for the places, and the respect for the pace as well, because it's a slower country, and therefore uh, fast-paced consumer travel has always been, I've always been not into that. I've always been into slow travel, and hopefully the videos sort of reflect a kind of philosophy that slow a little bit down and
yeah,
enjoy being here in Portugal. All those actually, and also the fact that if you go out beyond the well-trodden path, cities like, I mean, Lisbon and Porto, the two most popular cities in Portugal. But if you just stepped outside a little bit of that, you see a lot more and see so much more rewarding places as well. Equally, if not even more rewarding for some people.
yeah,
Um, one of the things that have, well, one of actually the best thing perhaps recently that I've come across was that I never realized the value of the videos I'm making, is I was making these videos as a way to say thank you to Portugal for, because I feel at home here, I feel welcomed, and that's very nice. And I really wanted to give a tribute to that in general. But I didn't realize the full value when there was a time when I was sitting down having dinner with my friend, and a really young couple, about 2021, they approached me and they knew immediately that, I'm that one who did the In the Mood, and I explained, and they were so nice approaching me, and I was really grateful that they approached me. But what they said, I'm not really used to being approached like that, but what they said was really enlightened me. What they said is like, oh, because of the video, you know, we were able to see Coimbra, we were able to see Aveiro, we were able to see Costa Nova. They went out to go out to those places, and they were such a young couple, and I thought, who would have thought, you know, like a really young couple would have just, you know, said, oh, you know what, let's spend a few days in Lisbon and then spend another day going to Coimbra and go to the off the beaten path Portugal, basically. So to me, that was like, wow, actually, those kids have got some value from what I create, and that's really beautiful. And that, to me, that was the impact I realized that it could have on some people, which is really lovely.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I do like about your channel is it's not Lisbon centric, and you've alluded to that of going off the beaten track and exploring different parts. And you know, we've mentioned Vila Nova and In the Mood for Alentejo and things.
I hope
like
you
this.
enjoy that. I love Costa Vicentina.
Yeah.
I hope you love that place.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you want people to know about the other parts of the country? I mean, you don't have to like go through every single place that you've been, but I mean, what were some of the places that kind of surprised you and that you enjoyed besides, you know, the obvious ones?
Right. Probably as a whole is like, how many hours can you cross Portugal from Algarve to the north? Maybe about 6 hours.
Yeah, it's just under 7.
Probably. Right. And it's like, and then you go from one end to another, it just looks so different. It's like you probably would cross, it looks like a few countries in one, basically. That. And the places that have really surprised me was like interior Portugal. Really surprised me. I love historic villages. I love just walking around these old walled fortress towns. And there's so many of them just there, just, you know, just standing there for the test of time, waiting to be explored. For example, Beira Interior is really beautiful. I just been in Alto Alentejo, which I haven't explored yet. And then when I went there recently, I went to Estremoz and I went to Elvas, and those areas, I'm just like, man, these places are so beautiful. Like, it's just, you know, these quiet towns that are so unassuming, unpretentious. They're just existing on their own, but they're quietly reveling in their own beauty. And that's really inspiring. Yeah, and even the Silver Coast, right? Like that thing, I haven't explored there much. Like I remember having been to Baleal, and that blew my mind. Just like how extraordinary that place is. As well as I recently been in Jerez. I loved it. Just being surrounded by the green, the lakes, and nature, and the rivers. It feels like another place as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, those surprising places, and it keeps me surprising every time. Every time I take the road, there's always a lovely little surprise around the corner, which is, that's part of the beauty of Portugal. Yeah,
I mean, one of the things that people love about here is you can, you know, this working remotely thing. I mean, obviously COVID showed us that we can work anywhere. But that there are these other places that people can work from and be happy besides the big cities, you know. And that's lovely. Is there any place that you visited that you thought, okay, I like Lisbon, but maybe this would also be a decent option for me to live?
Right. Yeah. I love Sintra.
Yeah.
Sintra is one of the most romantic places in the world, I think, and it's just a really beautiful place to be in. I love nature a lot. I love being in the nature. As much as I love being in a historic city, I also love nature. I love the mountains, and also I love being close to the sea. That was one of the That was one of the epiphanies I had when I moved to Portugal. Was like, as I mentioned earlier, there's the seas so in such a close proximity. It's almost unbelievable. And this also reminds me of my childhood because I spent my childhood in my family home, which is really close to the sea. It's about 5 minutes walk, and it's the beach. So living here in Portugal reminded me of that the really closeness to the sea is very important to me. So yeah, I have also Rábida is really beautiful. It's like a paradise, just like 1 hour away from Lisbon. It's crazy. So places that I could probably move in, I would consider central Portugal. It's really beautiful. I love the greenery, the mountains and the rivers and the lakes. And perhaps the Silver Coast there along there. Really, really beautiful place. Like that coast towards what we call that Lagoa de Óbidos, towards that around that area. Which that's your area, right? That's where you live.
Yeah, I'm near there. Have you been to Óbidos Castle?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I'm like 2-3 minutes from Óbidos Castle.
No way.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. It's
and that's like a really short drive.
Yeah,
short drive to the coast.
It's about 10 minutes to the coast, to Foz, which is that inlet to Óbidos Lagoon. Yeah. And then you've got, the coastline there it's mind-blowing. Like you just keep going north, and you've got São Antonio de Porto, Nazaré. Beyond Nazaré, there's beaches where it's about 8 kilometers where there's just nothing. Like it's just phenomenal. So yeah, you need to check it out. Well, let me know if you come up here, and I'll happily show you around. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Now I know someone. I think I know you're probably the second or third person I know who was around that coast. So fantastic, great. I will definitely let you know if I pass by.
You mentioned I also wanted to actually just hone in on something else you said, because you mentioned Busak, the palace.
Yes.
This is the thing, like everyone knows about these, the sort of the real well-known palaces, everyone talks about Pena in Sintra and places like that. But then you have like something like Busak, which is stuck away there in this forest in the middle of the country. Right. And it's just, wow. People just need to just explore more. And I think that's what your videos are so good at promoting is just get out and go find these places. Because it's a comfortable country to do that. People are friendly, they're welcoming, they'll show you around, they'll help you if you get lost, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and everything is so navigable, and it's just so it's just so easily reached by cars, and it's just like and also that I think it also comes with the drive of exploring, that spirit of adventure. It's just you just look at the map and go, look, I'm going there. What's around there? So you just started looking around. Sometimes I get obsessed with that, an idea of like just looking around. What are things that might be worth seeing, or just like literally not even going on a trip and I don't usually have a big plan. I usually just like go where my instincts go and the gut go, and then just exploring what feels right basically in the place. And that's been really working out a lot, which is great. So, and then it's part of the showcasing the videos of these little places that are rarely seen or rarely visited, and places that still within reach people, but not like the most obvious destinations, basically. So hopefully some of the videos were able to showcase those places.
Jens, you mentioned one of the things that kind of those expectations and surprises that you had when you first moved across, that there were certain things that resonated with you that reminded you of your Philippine background. And you mentioned kind of the food and that sort of simplicity, and then the warmth of the people. What do you want to just say about the warmth of this place? Not the weather, we know about. Everyone knows about the weather, but the warmth of the life here, of the lifestyle here, and the way that we celebrate and the people. What has been your experience in the 5 years that you've been here?
Well, I think I would like to share the very first story which happened when the time I moved here in Lisbon, like the day I landed in Lisbon. So for some unknown reason, I chose the 12th of June to fly into Lisbon. And I had no idea what was the importance, significance of that day.
Yeah.
I literally had no
Jeez,
idea. I
like
just
that's
booked
a
it
hell of
for
a
some
time to
reason.
get into Lisbon.
I know it was really marvelous though. It's like I landed in Lisbon and I started walking around. I thought, why are the streets being closed, and why there are parades, and why are people grilling sardines, and why is everyone drinking in the streets? And there must be something in the city. But I didn't really look it up because I was just like busy. I was just like in awe of everything. And so I was walking around, and without even looking at my Google map, I ended up in Alfama, which is the heart of the feast, basically. And I
Yeah.
was there. I was like sitting there, drinking Superboc. And I started looking and reading. I'm like, oh my God, this is Santo Antonio. Just happens to be Lisboa's most important event of the year. So it was 12th of June, and to connect it to there was a beautiful experience I had to connect it to Machado and culture, the similarities of the culture was when I was eating sardines, the grilled sardines, and it's like, it's have you seen the Pixar film Ratatouille? It's like
Yeah.
there was a moment when that guy was eating something and he was thrown back to his childhood,
Yeah,
and
the the
that's
the
like
the,
sort
the
of
food critic, and he cuts the
yes,
ratatouille, and it flashes back to in his mind. I remember, yeah.
exactly, and that's sort of that has the same feeling of like eating grilled sardines, and literally shoved me back to my childhood, in which, in Philippines it just happened to be the same feast, Saint Anthony, Santo Antonio, and in my village back in Philippines, and also Catholic. So there we go. And then they have the feast of, well, the saint, the patron saint, and the sardines. That's the relevance. And as a kid, we used to have these sardines and eat, and that really reminded me of that, basically. So that was the cultural relevance of these two places. And
Mm.
to me, that was really beautiful, a beautiful realization that it's this place reminded me of my own past, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, if a person ever believed in signs that you're in the right place, that's one. That's one right there for
Yeah,
you
yeah,
on the
yeah,
day
exactly.
that you arrive.
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, it's like everything. Celebrations are usually revolving around food and eating and drinking and lots of the festivities happening. So that's very, very similar. And that street life, basically, and that the beach life, of going to the beaches, that's very, very similar. So that's what I
Mm.
missed. That's what I missed when I was living in London, all those things.
Mm.
And then moving here, experiencing it again, seeing it, another perspective, more an adult perspective. Um, and yeah, to me, that was a beautiful experience, and still is. It still is happening. So
Awesome. Jens, how, I mean, you've been here 5 years. How has Portugal changed you as a person?
that's a very interesting question, very good one. I think it's got to do with the pace, learning how to pace down. Um, it has changed me in a way that I was able to actually appreciate simpler things, much, much simple things, like even just like a hike or like a walk or a run by the water in the docks towards Belém. Just sitting down watching the sunset, those things, really simple things. Um, Exploring food, just eating in a restaurant outside in the terrace. Um, Walks, just walks around Lisbon. That still delights me a lot. Like I still find myself whenever I go out and just walking around, and even without any purpose or destination, just walking around, that still is really, really, really beautiful for me. Um, Catching up with friends, for example, um, doing little activities, excursions outside the city, um, all those things. The learning how to appreciate what's around as well. Because, for example, in comparison to my life in London back then, it was such a hectic, busy life that I failed to see what's everything around me. And therefore here it's slightly different. It's able to slow down a little bit and actually appreciate and get out more and travel and take on road trips, explore Portugal as much as possible. Those things have sort of changed me in such profoundly, basically, as a person. Be able to appreciate, there's simple activities and simple things, and life is already very complicated. So be able to actually enjoy the moment, just being here, enjoying the life here, enjoying the simple pleasures. It's well worth enough.
Beautiful.
That changed me, basically.
Awesome. Jens, how can people, well, actually, no, before I ask you this question, one thing that you want people to remember and take away from our conversation, just one thing.
It's just based on my own experience and to share it to our listeners, is basically to I think the message I was trying to partake in all these videos that I create is that appreciation of the things around us. Basically, I know for a fact that, for example, it's being an imperfect person, flawed person, wants to keep learning and moving into Portugal, which is it's an imperfect place. You can find so much beauty in imperfection everywhere around you, around us, basically. That's what I learned. To be able to know that, and to be able to see beauty in spite of that, and to appreciate it, and to cherish it and nurture it and lift it up, basically, and share it, basically, to people who might appreciate the same way as you do, or I do, or we do. And really the most important, most meaningful moments for me was to have those simple things, like just taking the road, going on a road trip, stopping in a roadside restaurant, eating the freshest grilled fish you could ever imagine. Like those little simple things are like what composes happiness for me. And I hope people realize that too, that sometimes people want more, desire more, and perhaps maybe happiness is there in front of you. So that's what I would love to share, and hopefully people will find it useful.
Awesome, thank you. How can people follow you online and follow your work and get in touch?
Sure. So my In the Mood for Life series is on YouTube. So you can just go to youtube.com/Jans Anton-Iago, or you can just type in the Mood for Life and you will find the series there. And I'm also on Instagram, and I have a Facebook page, In the Mood for Life, as well. That's it. I'm out there. You can find me. I'm here. I'm in Lisbon. Say hello when you see me, because I used to be very shy, like still am, but I really find it really, really, really wonderful when people, share stories and share appreciation. That's an experience, and I think that's one of the reasons why that makes Portugal and Lisbon a really beautiful place to live in. People share, which is great.
Jens, a question that we ask all of our guests: Portugal, the simple life, why?
Because nothing beats simplicity. It's the source of happiness. As simple as that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Jens, this has been a wonderful conversation. I hope to meet you in person sometime in the near future. When you're doing In the Mood for the Silver Coast, you've got to come and I'll be your driver or something,
Oh man, okay. I'll take your word for it. I mean, I'm definitely going to reach you for now. When I'm going exploring that coast, I will.
Yeah, please let me know. Wonderful. Jens, thank you so much, and I'm going to let you call it.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so much. Ciao.
So thank you once again to Jans, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, And please leave a comment or a review. We always love to hear from you. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. As we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to the simple life.